Hello again, this is Diane. Again, a few things that have come to mind, and especially I think with the changes of events and quite rapidly changing events, not only in our own country but in America. So I feel led to explore that a little bit more, and also just to talk about some of the things that are going on and relate them to the Bible. Okay, so my title is Let's Get Back to Basics, and get back to listening to the people. The Bible says that without a vision the people perish, and that's in Proverbs 29:18. The trump victory for us Christians and for people in general shouldn't be a surprise. It should be no surprise, because people are seeking someone to lead them. We don't have strong leadership, and people are desperately seeking somebody to give them leadership, to give them truth, and something that they can hold on to, and something that they can say, yes, I can follow this man, I can follow this woman, because I believe them and I trust them. People are at the moment being led nowhere. In fact, the only things most governments can offer is what we had in the past. For example, in our own country, in the UK, England, our Brexit Prime Minister offers bringing back our grammar schools. This has all been done before. It's all been deconstructed, and now our new government has decided that it would be a good idea to reinstate the grammar schools. Okay, so it's nothing new, it's just the old, so there's nothing really being taking us a little bit further, or showing us something that, you know, is promoting our own country, or showing us something that is brand new, where we're all going to just turn around and just say, wow, that is amazing, that is great, I could really follow that. Why hasn't anybody thought of that before? But no, in our own country, the Prime Minister is suggesting that we have, or go back to our old grammar schools, and to bring them back. So you can understand why people are feeling deflated. So we must all be asking, can't you offer anything new? Is there nothing else that springs to mind, you know, in these brilliant minds of you know, our MPs and our prime ministers and the top people in the country, and all they could come up with, let's reinstate the grammar schools. So you can understand why people are feeling disheartened and saying, you know, can't you offer anything else? Is that it? And the answer is exactly that, is no, they can't. Because as Proverbs states, that without a vision the people perish, so they don't have a vision. So our British politicians cannot offer anything. So what all of us are seeking is a vision. At the moment we haven't got one in this country. You see, only God can give us that vision, and only God can lead us, and lead us in the way that we want to be led, that we want that inspiration. And well, I do. I would like to, you know, feel inspired by a leader and by somebody that is offering their leadership to us, and who we voted in. You know, the Prime Minister and the elected representatives. We would like to see them doing some of the bit bold and a bit brave, rather than always reverting back to maybe the easy and maybe the simple, and just keep it safe. So like I say, you can see only God, and I can see that it's God that gives us a vision and a future. And again, like I say, only God can lead us in the way that He knows we need to be led. We have to ask ourselves, what are we looking for? And I think we have to be honest, because I think we are all seeking the truth. And I think when we look at the newly elected President of the United States, Donald Trump, what was his appeal and what attracted people to him, and why was he so popular? He just blurts it out and just says it as it is, and we don't get that very often. We're very often we're treated like children, and we're not exposed to the truth. But we're not. We're all adults, and we feel probably more confident and more secure with somebody that speaks the truth, even if it's not necessarily what we want to hear. So I'd say those were the appealing factors, or the things that maybe people were attracted to. He wasn't, he's not the most likable man, Donald Trump, and what comes out of his mouth isn't the most pleasant thing. But you know where you stand with him. You know who he is. And yet our own politicians, although we think we know them, yet oftentimes they act on our behalf, and in most situations it's not what the people have voted for. It's not what the people really want, but it happens anyway, and a law is passed, and whether we like it or not. So like I say, only God can lead us, and we need to be led, and He knows how to lead us. And we have to ask ourselves again, what are we looking for? Well, I explained a little bit as to what I believe people are looking for and what I'm looking for. I like somebody to be truthful with me. And I think we are genuinely looking for somebody that is honest. So we are all on that basis. So we are all seeking the truth. Then we look at Barack Obama. Barack Obama offered change, but failed to do it. And Hillary Clinton offered the same, but the people couldn't see it. And David Cameron yes, so David Cameron made promises, but he couldn't keep them. So again, what does the Bible tell us? Well, the Bible tells us what happens when kings and leaders don't listen. So failing to listen to the people, what's the consequence? And failing to listen brings about the downfall, even of the most high people or persons in a leadership role. An example of that in the Bible is King David, where he came very close to knowing what it felt like to be on the very edge or very cusp of losing the confidence of the people, and an outbreak of rebellion. So King David didn't listen to the people, and the people turned against him. The difference with King David, though, is that he realized his mistake and changed his ways. So I'm talking about David's son, Absalom, in 2 Samuel 18 and verse 19 to 33. David wept for the loss of his son. And Joab told David, "Behold, the king is weeping and mourning for Absalom." So the victory that day was turned to mourning for all the people. So the king is representing the people, and their confidence comes from their leader, came from King David. And if King David was, showing weakness and crumbling, then also the people were losing heart as well. So it's important for the leaders, our leaders, to be strong and to show strong leadership. But if they fail to do that, then they will lose the confidence in the people, or at least the confidence that the people have in them. Right, so I hope I made that a little bit clearer, but I'll explain a little bit more about that. So just a little bit more about David and his loss of his son, Absalom. So as he was told this, he wept and he mourned. And so the victory, because they had a victory, but David had lost his son. Then Joab came into the house to the king and said, "Today you have disgraced all your servants who today have saved your life, the lives of your sons and your daughters." So he completely missed the point. Absalom wasn't a son that, he was a son of rebellion, and he was a son that was rising up against David. But even with that, and that knowledge, that he knew that his son would have gladly taken his place, David's place. But even knowing that, King David still wept and mourned for his son. And Joab saying, you're not seeing the whole scenario here. You're not seeing the full story. You're overlooking the whole picture, and what you're missing is that these people out here, these people that you govern, have fought, and they've lost loved ones, and they've lost sons, and they've lost daughters, and they've defended you, and they've come back to celebrate and to say, and thinking that King David would be so pleased, and we'd be feasting and we would be celebrating. But of course that wasn't happening. So the people were disappointed, bitterly disappointed, that there was no joy there, and their king was completely consumed by his own loss, and completely ignoring and forgetting what his own people had done, and how much they'd laid down their lives, and how much it had cost them as well. And I think that's quite a relevant point, because I'll just go on a little bit about that, because I think when we have prime ministers and leaders, they should also need to know their people. They also need to understand that when they're leading their people, when they're making these decisions, when they're introducing a new law, what are they putting their people through? Because the people are, majority of people will put up with a lot, and with the changes and the government policies, it could be anything at all, and go through recessions and mistakes that are made by politicians. But we all suffer it, but we suffer it together. But because our leaders are not in touch with us, as David wasn't. King David was showing that he was not in touch with his people. He wasn't in touch with what's going on. And as soon as you lose that, then you're on a loser, because you're not feeling what your people are feeling, and if you disconnect yourself from your people, then decisions can be made without considering the consequences on your people, and they're the people that keep you in your place of leadership. I think that's quite an important point to remember, and this is coming out quite clearly with David and Joab, who made it very clear to him and saying, in God's eyes, David, you're missing the point completely. And as he said, today you've disgraced all your servants, who today have saved your life and the lives of your sons and your daughters. But it appears, and what you're showing, King David, is what Joab's saying, is that you love your enemies and you hate your friends, because Absalom wasn't doing you any favours. He wasn't your friend. He was your son, but he certainly didn't have the loyalty and the love that would be expected, or would be expected of a father and a son. It wasn't that kind of relationship. And I'm saying, and yet the people that are not related to you, your friends, the people that have gone out into battle and laid their lives down for you, you give no care for. So Joab advised him and said, now, therefore, arise, go out and speak and comfort to your servants. And he gives him a stark warning. And this is very significant for our own leaders, because I think that if you miss this, then you won't be in power for very long. For I swear by the Lord, if you do not go out, not one will stay with you this night. And then the king, so not one will stay with you this night. So in other words, you can have your kingship, but you'll have nobody to lead, because you'll have nobody that is going to be here to support you, because you don't give any care for them. So, how do you expect them to react? What do you expect them to do? And, they'll desert you. And then the king arose and sat in the gate, and they told all the people, saying, there is the king. The king is sitting in the gate. Now, sitting in the gate meant that, I believe it meant that the king was ready to talk or to give an announcement, and also to speak to the people. So, you know, we have our media, we have our TV coverage, and we have our ministers and MPs, and they'll stand in front of a TV crew, and you know, they'll make their announcements and talk to the people via a TV camera screen. Whereas King David didn't have that, so he was expected to connect with his people and talk to them and be seen. And he did that by sitting at the gate. So that meant he's got something to say. So all I can say is that the lesson is that David listened to his people. And that's why God says that that, you know, he wanted, or David wanted, to have a heart after God, and so he wanted to know God's ways. How would God deal with this? How would God treat this situation? How much does God love his people? How much does God care for the individual person? You know, and it's not all about self, and it's not all about what you're going through, but there's more than just one person in this relationship, and especially in David's relationship, because all were looking towards him. All were looking for this leader to rise up and celebrate with them, and to, you know, to be pleased with them, and just, you know, it would be like, it's like a thankless task, isn't it? You know, if you do something for somebody, and you've, you know, whatever it might be, but you've done something, and then you place a cup of tea, maybe, for your partner, put it on the table, and your partner completely ignores you and doesn't say thank you, or doesn't even acknowledge you, or grunts or something like that. And the feelings are that you're immediately that you're, you know, I don't feel appreciated. I don't even know why I made that cup of tea. You know, I did that out of the goodness of my heart, and you've completely ignored me. So next time you can make your own cup of tea. It might be the thought. I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm just saying, you know, that's how it makes you feel. It's ingratitude, and it's important to value each other, and it's important that you acknowledge that person for, you know, putting an effort into something, or you know, it's important for them. I mean, what does it cost? What did it cost to David to sit there and say, I appreciate what you did, I thank you for what you did, we are going to celebrate this, even though I have lost my son, but I am going to put that to one side, because that is my own self and my own grieving. But today is victory. We have had victory, and so instead of humiliating his people, and instead of which is what would have happened, is that it would have been, you know, it says here that that instead of turning, so the victory sorry, let me read that. So the victory that day was turned to mourning for all the people. And then Joab came in to the house to the Lord and said, today you have disgraced all your servants, who today have saved your life. So he was saying, you know, this victory you've turned into mourning. So what's that going to, what kind of message is that giving to the people? So what is the lesson then to be learned? Well, eventually, you know, David quickly turned it around for good and put aside his own feelings. And this is the mark of a true leader. And David listened to his people, and by doing so, he gained their confidence and their loyalty. And their loyalty was restored. So their confidence in him and their loyalty was, it was just a simple act. And yet he swung it and turned it around. And that he restored their faith in him and their hope in a future. And that's what I'm trying to get across here, is that that without that care, that compassion of a leadership that we can connect to, then it will always fail, because we have to feel connected to our leaders. We have to feel connected to the Donald Trumps of this world, and I just believe, like the Hillary Clintons of this world, she strived, she did work hard, she did do her utmost to project what she was trying to do and what kind of politician she would, a leader she would be, but it wasn't sincere. And in the end, it's sincerity that counts. And you can't fool people. You might think you can, you can put across things and make it look as though, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the time. It might, if you're not real, then what are you? And how do we know we can trust you? And that is my message for today, is that you have to connect with your people. And if you don't connect with them, then how can you expect them to trust you? And people need that strength of leadership, and know that you're going to put your own feelings aside, and you're going to lead them into prosperity, and you're going to lead them in the good times and the bad times, but you will lead them. And ultimately, you will be thinking of your people, and how you're going to best serve them. And just to finish with, so David, in the end, because of that one single act of humbling himself, humbling his heart, and sitting in the gate, ready to speak to his people, ready to encourage them, ready to build them up, then he gained the loyalty of his people, and he restored his kingship. And that's all I've got to say. So I hope that you find that interesting. I would like to carry on and look into other areas as they pop up. But thank you for listening, and God bless you.